Gita, text number 9th chapter, text number 23. So I'll just read and then we can try to consider what Krishna is saying here. Yipyanya divata bhakta yajante shadayan vitaha tepi mamiva panteya yajantya vidipurvakam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Those who are devotees of other gods and worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti. But they do so in a wrong way. So everyone can please repeat. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti. But they do it in a wrong way. Purport. Persons who are engaged in the worship of the demigods are not very intelligent, although such worship is offered to me indirectly, Krishna says. For example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the roots, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, but not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord only. That will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government, and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors is illegal. This is stated here as a vidipurvakam. In other words, Krishna does not approve of the unnecessary worship of the demigod. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganachakaya Chakshurum Militam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Supitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Pakadat Makam Vadati Shvara. So in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna recommends that we should worship the devatas. He says that anyone who takes advantage of the benefits of the blessings of the devatas and does not offer his proper respect or proper homage is considered to be a thief. So actually, there are different levels of understanding of worship, and this is what Krishna is conveying here. What he's saying is that the universe, just like Trinidad, just like Felicity has its government, and Trinidad has a government over that, and the universe has government over that, they have different levels of government. Indradev, he is the Lord of certain types of demigods. And Brahmaji, he is above Indra, but he doesn't interact with Indra. Only every once in a while does Brahma interact with Indra. And Indra, and Brahma, he responds to Krishna, as Shiva also responds to Krishna. So sometimes these understandings are not very clear, although these understandings are very clear within the Vedas. So Krishna here is trying to give us clarity. And he's saying, if you worship, just like Srila Prabhupada gives a very good example here, that, and this is very common in many places, possibly in Trinidad also, that if you want to get something done, you can go through the bureaucracy of the government, or you can pay somebody. And it gets done faster when you pay somebody. So, he compares here the worship. Otherwise, there is worship that is recommended for the different devatas, for the different demigods. Different types of worship. But that worship is not on the same level. Just like if you go to a government office and you may meet the minister of this particular area, then you have to show respect. There's respect, there's protocol. If you just walk in the office in your shorts and t-shirt and say, I want to speak to the minister, then they probably won't let you, because you're not showing the proper level of respect. So the devatas, they have very high positions compared to us. But those devatas, they have their authority. Everyone in this universe has some authority, even Lord Brahma. We were just discussing on the way here, in the 6th chapter, 6th canto of Bhagavad Purana, it's explained the story of Ajamila. Ajamila was a Brahmana who had fallen into a very degraded lifestyle. And so for 80 years, he lived a very degraded life. He married a prostitute, and this prostitute would steal and rob and do anything to satisfy her. And then his time for death came, and he called out the son of the name of his son, Narayana. So, because he had been very sinful, immediately the Yamadutas, the servants of Yamaraj, they came, they converged on him, and they were very fearful, very fearful persons. They were ready to take him away to the hellish region of Yamaraj. Not all of Yamaraj's kingdom is hellish. Some of it is very nice palaces, but there's places where you get tortured, just like in the prison. The superintendent of the prison has a nice office, but the rest of the prison is maybe not so nice. So, as they were getting ready to take him away, he was very afraid. But then, all of a sudden, the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Lord Narayana, they came. And they were very effulgent. They were very much bigger than the Yamadutas and more powerful. And the Yamadutas, they said, you cannot touch him. Yes, of course. Big, powerful Yamadutas. So, then the Yamadutas went back to their Lord, Yamaraj. They said, my dear Lord, we're very confused. Because all this time, we understand you are the Lord of death. Death is the one thing that no one can avoid. It is the supreme chastisement. It is above all other functions that we may experience in life. It is the ultimate. And you are the Lord of that. And therefore, we thought you were the supreme. But who are these people that came? And they stopped us. And so Yamaraj explained that myself and Indra and all of the devatas, we all are servants of the Supreme Person, Sri Narayana, Sri Vishnu. He is supreme. And so then he explained to them the whole science, Vedic science, how there's a hierarchy. Now sometimes we were just discussing on the way here, sometimes it's like any person, everyone here has a mother, I assume. No one just popped out. We all have a mother. So, when we were young children, we considered that our mother was the most important person in our life. The greatest person. No one was above our mother. Just like a small child. If there's some danger, they don't call the police. No. They grab their father's leg. Or they grab their father's hand. No. If we see some danger, we call the police. No. But they're totally dependent. But then as they grow up, they understand that, wait, my father, he has to pay taxes, and he's sometimes he takes a little drink or something, you know. He's not perfect like I thought he was. There's somebody above him. So as we mature also spiritually, we may be worshiping different personalities, but we will ultimately understand as we spiritually grow and mature that who is the highest personality? Just like our spiritual master, our Guru, Srila Prabhupada, used to say that the process of understanding the Supreme is very simple. We see someone and they have their father, and that person has their father, and that person has their father, and that person has their father. So when you go to the last father, that is the Supreme. The last. We may not see that person so easily. So this is what Krishna is explaining here. Yajanti Shraddhayam Mitaha. People, they are worshipping. Yepiyanya Devata Bhakta. The Bhaktas of the Devatas. Here in Trinidad, it's very popular to be Bhaktas of the Devatas. And the Devatas are worshipable. 500 years ago, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared in India. And he is known to be the most munificent and greatest incarnation of Krishna. So when he was traveling in South India, he would go to different temples, and especially in the temples of Shiva, he would dance and chant, and he would worship Lord Shiva. Because he showed us that these Devatas, they are representatives of the Supreme Lord. You must show them respect, as Krishna says in the 3rd chapter. If you don't, just like here we have so many lights, electricity, water, but it's not free. You have to pay. You have to pay the government, the electric company, all different representatives or different branches of the governmental authority that's provide us with everything we need. So the Devatas, the demigods, they also provide us with everything we need. And therefore, we worship them in a certain way. But what Krishna is saying here is that the absolute worship, the highest worship, should be given to me. And he says, if someone else takes any other personality and worships them as the highest, then this is called Aditi Purvaka. This is doing the right thing in the wrong way. The right thing is we worship the Supreme. But the wrong thing is to have a misunderstanding of who is the Supreme. Now Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita very clearly in the next chapter, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. That everything spiritual and material comes from me. And he also says in that same chapter, Aham adirhi devanam. All the Devatas come from me. They are all emanating from me. So it's very clear. Now in India, where the conception of Devatas comes from, everyone accepts Bhagavad Gita. But very few people understand the Bhagavad Gita. There are very few that actually can understand these truths which are very clear. So, there are some different instances where even the greatest demigods could not fully understand Krishna. It's not unusual not to understand Krishna. It's not unusual. It's the most common thing in this world not to understand Krishna. Even Lord Brahma, the Supreme, the Adi Kavaye, the first person in this universe. So one time he was summoned to speak to the Supreme Lord. So he came to the entrance of the spiritual world. And of course we know in the entrance of the spiritual world there is Jai and Vijay. So he was greeted by the doorman and they said, so who are you? Surprised. Who am I? I'm Brahmaji. Yes, but okay. And he came back, but which Brahmaji? What do you mean, which Brahmaji? I'm Brahma, I'm Brahmaji. Who are you? some ignorant person. So he said, yes, but the Lord wants to know which Brahmaji are you? So he was getting a little frustrated. He said, okay, now you can come in. And when he came before the Supreme Lord Krishna, he looked and he saw so many Brahmajis. Now our Brahma has 4 heads, but he saw Brahmas with 8 heads, 12 heads, 20 heads, 100 heads, because they were coming from much bigger universes. And the bigger the universe is, the more heads you need to, like sometimes people say, let's put our heads together. So Brahmaji can do that all in one person. So he came and he saw all these Brahmas, and then he understood, I am just an insignificant soul. Within these universes, he's the Supreme Person. Just like within our home, we are, the master. This is our castle. This is our abode. So I'm, and within my home, I'm the one that supreme authority. But when I go out of my home, then there are so many other people, and I have to respond to the government and everybody. So within different levels of existence, we may be supreme in some group of people. I may be the leader, I may be the president, I may be the king. But when we come to the Supreme, then as Krishna says here, the Supreme Lord, He is above all. One time, there was one Asura. This Asura was named Brika. So Brika was very, very austere, and he wanted to get a benediction. He was a worshiper of Lord Shiva. So he began to do a very ghastly sacrifice. He made the sacrificial fire, but instead of offering wood and ghee, he was cutting his flesh off of his body, one strip at a time. And he would put it into the sacrificial fire. It was burning up until he cut off all the flesh on his body. Nothing left but just some muscle and bones. But he was a mystic. These mystics, they can do these even horrible austerities and still remain alive. Just like Hiranyakashipu. He was doing great sacrifices to please Lord Brahma. And he stood on his leg for so long that his whole body was eaten up. There was nothing left but a skeleton. But because he was so powerful, he remained within that skeleton until he got his blood. So, Vikasura. Then finally, Lord Shiva, he became, he said, I can't, this is horrible for him. So he came just to stop him. So what do you want? Oh, I want some special benediction from you. And he said, yes, anything, just stop this. And he said, all right. So, what do you want? He said, I want the blessing that whoever I touch on their head will fall off. So Lord Shiva was thinking, I already promised him. Obviously this person is up to no good. But, okay, I give you that blessing. So he said, yes, now I want to try it out. All right. I want to try on you. So Lord Shiva, now see, as Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, that the blessings that Lord Krishna gives are eternal. They are permanent and eternal. They are totally spiritual and transcendental. But the blessings and the benedictions that the demigods give are temporary. And that's what we want. We want something temporary. We want to get something from the devatas. I want some less. I want more fortune. I want more money. I want power. I want this. I want this. We're asking for something. And they're the right people to go to get those things. So Lord Shiva, even though he had given that blessing and he is so powerful, he realized that I have to I could be subjected to this curse. Of course, Krishna cannot be subjected to any curse. But the Devatas, they can. So Lord Shiva, he ran, he took off. And at that time, he happened to pass by Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna, he said, "So Shivaji, why are you running?" And he explained the whole situation. He said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." So he kept going. And then this Brikasura, he came and he saw Krishna. So he offered his respects. And he said, "So I heard that Lord Shiva has given you a blessing." He said, "Yes, he explained. I know." Krishna said, "I know everything." So he said, "But do you think it's real?" No. "Do you think it's real? Lord Shiva is in charge of the bhutas, no? Of all the ghostly creatures, and he's covered with ashes, and he associates with people in Tamaguna. Do you think that his blessing is real?" No. And he began to doubt. So he said, so actually Brikasura was thinking, and he said, "So why don't you try it?" So Brikasura was thinking, sometimes when we're thinking we go like this, no? Scratch our head. So he went, "Yeah," and his head fell off. So the point is that even Lord Shiva, even though he's very powerful, he is so powerful that actually, even when the universe is destroyed, Lord Shiva is not destroyed. Lord Brahma, he's like us, except he's more powerful than any of us. But he's a jiva like us. But Lord Shiva is not a jiva. Lord Shiva is an expansion of Lord Vishnu. It's called Shambhu. Shambhu means halo or shadow. Otherwise, he is, when Lord Vishnu, who is totally transcendental, beyond matter, when he enters into contact with matter, he becomes Shiva. That is the difference between Shiva and Vishnu. And so, that difference is very subtle, but it is a difference. Because the Supreme Lord actually, in the Bhagavad Purana, it also explains that Parikshit Maharaj, at the very end of the 10th canto, he asks a question to Shukadev Goswami. He says, "So my dear Shukadev, I was wondering, why is it that the devotees of Lord Shiva are very opulent? No? Whereas Lord Shiva is always meditating. And who is he meditating on? He's meditating on Sankarshan. And who is Sankarshan? He is an expansion of Lord Vishnu. So he's always meditating, he's very austere. He practically wears no clothing. No? And he's always in this meditative trance. He has no possessions. But his devotees have so much opulence. Whereas the devotees of Krishna, sometimes they don't have so much opulence. But Krishna is Madhava. He is the husband of the goddess of fortune. So he said, this seems a little contradictory. But Lord Shukadeva Goswami said, no. Lord Shiva is the Lord of the material world. He is the supreme person within this world. No one is above him. He exists even after the universes are destroyed. He exists eternally. But he manifests in each universe at a certain time in the creation. And he said, so he is in charge of the 16 lingas, the 16 different points of power and prosperity in this world. And therefore he can give anything material. And so his devotees, they are generally praying for something material. And he gives it to them, if they pray properly. Of course, most people don't even know how to pray properly, and therefore they don't even get the blessings of Shiva, or Lakshmi, or Durga, because they don't do proper sacrifice. That's another thing, that when we worship the Devatas, unfortunately their worship is very complex. It requires certain type of yajna, certain type of offerings, certain materials have to be offered, certain timings must be there. But the worship of Krishna is very simple. Krishna says, patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta pranashati. That you can offer me a leaf, a flower, water, or a fruit. Just what I really want is your love. Just offer it with love and devotion. That's what I don't require anything else because I have everything. No, I am the Lord of unlimited goddesses of fortune, unlimited Lakshmis. No. What do I need? What can you give me? No. But even if you give me a little fruit or flower, of course that means if we have more, we shouldn't just give Krishna flower. I give Krishna flower, I give myself 10,000 TT. And Krishna flower. No, not like that. But if you don't have anything, you can give him a flower and he'll be happy. So Lord Shiva, he is actually in a very special position, but he's always worshiping the Supreme Lord. So this is Indra. One time, this is a very interesting story from the Mahabharata. One time, there was in Nagaloka, there was a certain sacrifice that every month they would offer one naga, one snake. The nagas are not actually fully snake. They're not like the snakes we see crawling around here in Trinidad. But they're actually a special kind of snake that's also got some human characteristics. They're very special subterranean beings. So in Nagaloka, every month they offered one snake, very special one, like choice, first class naga for Garuda. So there was one naga, he was like the best of all. And he was born of a devata. So he had very special characteristics. And this naga, when they were getting ready to offer him, Lord Indra, he said, he was thinking that actually this person is very special. Maybe just put somebody else, he can actually do some service in the heavenly planet. So he went to Krishna, or Lord Vishnu actually, he went to Lord Vishnu, and he said, my dear Lord, this person could be very much use, but he's going to be an offering for Garuda. Can you allow him to come to the celestial world so that he can do his very special service? Yes, of course, no problem. So Garuda, he had already understood that he would get this special offering. Then when he got there, he saw like what he considered a second-class offering. So he became very angry, and he started flapping his wings. Of course, when he flaps his wings, it's worse than a hurricane. We think hurricanes are bad, but when Garuda, so the king of the Nagas came out. How can I serve you? What is this? This is not the proper offering. And he said, no. It wasn't me. This was an arrangement by Indra. Please, I had nothing to do with it. I actually gave you the proper offering. Went to Indra Loka, and Indra felt this great wind coming, and Garuda landed it and said, why did you do this? No, Lord Vishnu, he authorized it. I only requested, he authorized it, Lord Vishnu. Please. So Garuda, he went up to Lord Vishnu, he said, my dear Lord, I understand that you authorized that my offering would be, of course, you are my master. I am your servant. But even though I am your servant, what would you do without me? I am your carrier. So if I don't eat properly, then how will I carry you? And so the Lord Krishna said, oh, you think I depend on you? Well, everywhere you go, I carry you. He said, oh, okay. So Lord Vishnu took his little finger, same finger that Krishna used to lift the Govardhan hill, and he put it on Garuda's wing, and Garuda went. So he said, you still think I depend on you? No, my Lord, no. I made grave mistake. Please forgive me. He offered prayers. The Lord was happy. So we may have some power, or someone that we know or worship may have some power. And by that power, they may seem to be very great. Even nowadays, here in Trinidad, in so many places, everywhere, there are musicians and they're worshiped. I've seen, like sometimes here, we're coming here to hear something from Bhagavad Gita, and there's only, how many? Maybe 50, 60 people. But if some big music star, I don't know who's the biggest star in Trinidad?
Marshall.
Huh?
Marshall.
Okay, him. So if he comes, there'll be thousands of people. There'll be 10,000, maybe 15,000 people. So and some great, even a politician gets elected, people are standing there with their signs and shouting. Sometimes when we worship Krishna, we go, Hare Krishna. And they're going like this, but for some politician. So everybody's doing the right thing, but to the wrong person, in the wrong way. This is called Adhiti Purvakam, exactly as Krishna says here. We all know how to do the right thing. Just like our spiritual master, when he went to Russia, he was sponsored by one Professor Krotowski. So the professor was saying, actually, I don't believe in God. We're here in Russia, we're atheists, most of us, especially the intellectual class. So Srila Prabhupada explained that everywhere there's an intellectual class, everywhere there's a ruling class, everywhere there's a commercial Vaishya class, and everywhere there's a labor class. But he said that these things are universal principles. And he said, just like we are also doing the same thing. I am worshiping Krishna, you're worshiping Lenin. So we're doing the same thing. So the question is not what to do, but who is the proper recipient. So this is what Krishna is saying here. Because in the previous text, Krishna says, Ananya chintayantam mam ye jana paripashate tesham nityamidhanam yogakshemam nahamyaham. For those persons who constantly meditate on me with undivided devotion, then tesham nityamidhanam, they will be eternally linked to me. Previously he said that they will be yukta upasate. They will worship me eternally. So when we relate to Krishna, everything is eternal. Everything is transcendental. Everything is above any consideration that we may make in this particular realm of existence. So there's nothing wrong, there's nothing unusual that we will worship devatas, we will worship great personalities, we will worship musicians, we will worship people who are very capable, great philosophers. People have great respect for Greek philosophers, European philosophers. They are very, very intelligent, capable persons who presented very, articulate and wonderful philosophical expositions. But they are not the supreme. They are not the supreme. And actually, if we study all through the, even when Hiranyakashipu approached Lord Brahma, and he said, I just want one blessing from you. Please, you make me immortal. And Brahma said, that is one thing I can't do. That only Lord Narayan can do. Of course, Hiranyakashipu didn't want to worship Narayan. So he said, so he tried to, figure it out. Okay, then you give me the blessing, I can't be killed in day or night. You think I got that covered? Time. I can't be killed indoors or outdoors. You got that covered. I can't be killed by any weapon, by any man or animal. Okay, you got that covered. So he thought, I tricked him. I've tricked you. So sometimes we think also, we may see something in Bhagavad Gita, we may see something in Bhagavad Purana, and with our very fertile intelligence, we think, I can get around that. I know another injunction, I know another shastra here, I know something else, I know this Upanishad says this. We try to figure it out, to get around what Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, which is Sarvadhamam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, that just surrender to me fully. Give up all other unnecessary engagements. Engage fully in my worship. And Mokshayishami Ma Shuchaha. Do not fear. I will deliver you from all miseries, from all everything, and I will give you the supreme liberation. So, no one else is promising that but Krishna. And Krishna declares again and again in Bhagavad Gita that I am the supreme. And in the Bhagavad Purana, in many different places, Lord Shiva, he declares that Krishna is the supreme. And when Lord Nrsimhadev appeared after killing Hiranyakashipu, all the different devatas, it's stated, every one of them offered prayers to him. And he is the expansion of Lord Vishnu, who is the expansion of Lord Krishna. So, this is the hierarchy that we can understand from the Shastras, from Bhagavad Gita, from Bhagavad Purana. And the Bhagavad Purana itself declares, at the end of Bhagavad Purana in the 12th canto, it explains how many different shlokas there are in each Purana, in each different Purana. And then it declares that this particular Purana is Amala Purana. It is the purest, it is the most perfect, because it only deals with the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, and his expansion Vishnu. There is no other consideration there. There are some stories that may build up to that. And so the point is that Krishna says, and he says previously, it's interesting in a previous verse, in verse number 21, he says that we may worship different devatas and we may be promoted to the celestial realm, but Shine Punye Bhartita Lokam Vishanti. But after the time, there's a time limit. There's a time limit in those places. And after that time limit is finished, then we will again return to this Martya Loka. Where is Martya Loka? Right here. And what does Martya Loka mean? The place of death. What it means is you have to die here. And even in the celestial world, you have to die. But Krishna says that when you return to my supreme abode, there is no question of death. When you reach that supreme abode, you never return to this material realm. So, just by understanding this explanation in Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that there is no need to worship anyone else. Now, why is Krishna saying that when previously, and there's so many shastras say you should worship Indra, you should worship Shiva, you should worship... No, even in the Bhagavad Purana, Krishna says that if you want this, if you want good health, you worship Bhumi Devi. If you want strength, you worship Surya. If you want so many different things, he tells each different thing that you may want, you worship this devata. But then he says, but if you want to transcend this world and be liberated eternally to the supreme abode, you worship me alone. That's what you do. So this is the same thing Krishna is saying. And especially in this age, it's very difficult to worship so many different personalities according to the proper method of worship. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada mentions here in his purport that there are certain rules and regulations that must be followed in worship. And the easiest worship is given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. He says, you worship me with love and devotion. So love and devotion, we all know how to do that. We love our children, we love our mother, we love our father, we love our family. We devote ourselves to caring for these persons. So love and devotion is very easy. But when we talk about different methods of worship which are prescribed in the Vedas, it's very difficult. And also Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that actually the Vedas are meant for different forms of elevation within this world. The main portion of the Vedas deals with that. That Tragunya Vishaya Vedadis Tragunya Bhavarjuna. That the Vedas mainly deal with how to navigate the modes of nature, Sattva Gun, Rajagun, Tamagun. How to, just like if you're navigating a boat in the ocean, then you have to know where the currents are, where the storms are. So big storms are like Tamagun, and big currents are like Rajagun. But beautiful sailing on a sunny day with a nice wind, that is like Sattva Gun. But the Vishuddha Sattva, or the transcendental realm, the spiritual realm, the realm of the Supreme Lord, that is beyond this ocean of birth and death. So Krishna says, Arjuna, elevate yourself to the transcendental abode. So the method of doing that, and why does Krishna insist when the Vedic culture, our tradition of Vedic culture, there was so much worship of different personalities. Because how long do we have in this lifetime? How long do we have? 70 years, 80 years, maybe 90 years. I meet many people here in Trinidad, they say my mother or my grandfather is 90 years old. Because they actually worked hard. But nowadays, because we don't work very hard, most of us are sitting down and working, nowadays it's more popular, especially with petroleum. And people are giving up farming. Why should we farm? Let's buy it all from Guyana. We have money. Buy all the food from Guyana or someplace else, Venezuela. And we'll just enjoy life, go to the mall, we all work in an office, and bring somebody else to do our work. So this is becoming more popular. So people will live less time because then they don't get exercise. And they may live for a long time taking all kinds of pills and, fight off this and fight off that, fight off the cholesterol, fight off the arthritis, fight off. All these things are diseases of not living a proper life, not a proper lifestyle. A proper lifestyle means that we eat healthy, simple foods in the mode of goodness, Sattva Gun. And we keep our consciousness in Sattva Gun. And even elevate it to the transcendental realm of consciousness, spiritual consciousness. And how is that accomplished? Very easily, by just what we were doing as everyone came in. Chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
And why do we recommend this chanting of the Mahamantra? Because the Supreme Lord says that Nam Namakari Bahuda Anisha Sarva Shaktis. And within my transcendental, unlimited names are contained all my potencies. Everything that the Supreme Lord can offer us, all of His Shakti, all of His potency is within these names. And Niyamita, Nakala. There's no specific time you have to chant it. There are no specific rules that govern it. The only rule is that you must try to chant His name with faith and love and devotion to the Supreme Lord. That's the only rule. And if we follow that and we chant this Mahamantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, then we get all the benefits that all the demigods can give. We get all the spiritual benefits that Krishna can give, that wants to give us. So this is the offering of Krishna here in Bhagavad Gita. You take up this process of bhakti yoga, the transcendental spiritual path to achieve the highest goal that anyone can possibly achieve in their life. And then we will all be very happy. Krishna says in the beginning of the chapter that we just read, this process is susukam kartum abhyayam. It is eternal and it is very joyful when you perform it. When we chant the holy name, sometimes we do very complex yagyas, it's very, very difficult. But you chant this name of Krishna, is very sublime. It makes us very happy. It awakens our consciousness. It does everything spiritually beneficial comes from the chanting of the holy name. And our lives become perfect by that chanting. So therefore, this is Krishna's recommendation. This is our humble offering to all of you to try to help you to understand and practice the sublime process of bhakti yoga. So I'll stop here. Does anyone have a question? Yes.
We are accustomed to finding a solution to our problems. We are trying very hard, but we are creating other problems by these solutions. We are trying worship, we are trying politically, but still our problems continue. And we wonder why, sometimes we turn away from God, we turn away from religion, and we're thinking, well, our problems will be solved. But however, our problems continue again, perpetually it may appear. How now could we, in this time, we are seeing our whole population is going like that, and there's no solution to our problems.
Well, first we should understand, you said that some people turn to religion. Or religion comes from the Latin word religiare, which means to rejoin. It means literally to come back to my original position, which is a spiritual position. What is our identity? Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. And what is the duty of Brahman? Duty is Krishnara Nityadas. What does the Brahman do? It is connected to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, that I am the source of this Brahman. And therefore, if we are Brahman, what does Brahman do? What does Krishna do? Krishna says, I have unlimited activities, eternal Leela. And the living entity, ourselves, we also have that eternal Leela. So the real solution to our lives is to understand what is the real problem. The real problem is called samsara, the repeated cycle of birth and death. So if we can solve that problem, then there's no more problems. Just like when somebody dies, then he solved all of his problems of his debts, all of his psychological problems. Everything is solved, apparently. But as we know from Vedic scripture, he will take another birth. And then those problems will again flourish in a different way, a different place, a different body. But if you stop the samsara, then there's no more problem. So Srila Prabhupada said, what are our real problems? Birth, death, old age, and disease. Otherwise, every other problem you have, with a little bit of time, it's over. Otherwise, if you just wait some time, then any particular problem will be over with that we have, that we're concerned about right now. Even old age and death, old age and disease, they'll be over with in death. But the problem is, if we don't die in the proper way, if we don't die with full consciousness, as Krishna says in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Yam Yam Bhakti Shmaram Bhava, if we don't remember Him at the time of death, if we do remember Him, then we go to the spiritual realm. But if we're thinking about my family, my debts, my problem, this and that, then we remain in the material world, another body. So the real solution to all problems is to meditate on the Supreme Personality of God. And that way, ultimately, we will solve all of our problems. Not by politics. Politics has been around for millenniums, and it has never solved any problem. As Srila Prabhupada used to say, resolution, revolution, no solution, dissolution. So this is generally what's happening in this world. That we have a resolution. Let's do it this way. Then there's a revolution. No, somebody else wants to do it another way. Then dissolution. Then it all falls apart and no solution. And then back to another resolution. This is the problem. This is how we solve problems. Yes.
Gurudev, we have one devotee online under Mayapur TV, Molly. She wants to know what is the difference between Vishnu and Krishna.
The difference between Vishnu and Krishna is a very good question. There is no difference. The Srila Prabhupada explained that just like here we have these light bulbs, and sometimes you can put in the same socket, you can put a 50-watt bulb, 100-watt bulb, 1,000-watt bulb, and they're actually coming from the same source, but they have different potency. So the different appearances of the Lord Vishnu, when He appears in different incarnations, is like different manifestations of the Lord's qualities. All of the Supreme Lord's qualities are found in Lord Krishna. And as He expands Himself in different incarnations for different purposes, then certain potencies will be manifested, other potencies may not be present. So that is the difference. That the expansions of the Lord in the form of Vishnu, even in the highest form of Vishnu, which is Narayana, there are four particular qualities that Krishna has that even Lord Narayana doesn't have, which is His sweetness, the total dedication of His devotees, the way He plays His flute, and His wonderful leelas, which are extraordinary and beyond the leelas even of Lord Narayana. So these four qualities are only found in Krishna.
One more question from one devotee under Mayapur TV. His name is Himchan. He wants to know that what is the difference between Brahman and Krishna?
Between Brahma and Krishna?
Yeah.
Well, Brahma is a jiva soul.
No,
like
Brahman.
Brahman.
Yeah.
Oh, the Brahman. Brahman is the energy of Krishna. Just like we have our energy, we're persons, and our energy, we have certain types of energy that we consume when we do something. So that is our, that energy is we expend it in a certain way. And Krishna's energy is called Brahman. So Krishna is Param Brahman. Krishna is the supreme person from which all that spiritual energy comes out.
He is writing here while you are speaking. He said, if there is no difference between Brahman being the source of material need here, are we obligated to worship in Brahman?
Are we obligated to worship Brahman?
Yeah.
No. We worship the source of Brahman, which is Krishna. The ultimate source of the Brahman is Krishna. We don't have to worship. Of course, the Brahma Jyoti, or the Lord's effulgence, is worshipable. But if we worship Krishna, then we don't have to worship His effulgence separately. That's the whole point. That's the whole point that's being made in this verse. That if you worship the Supreme Lord, then you don't have to worship all of His different, if you're connected with the Supreme Lord, just like if I know the secretary of the president, then even though the secretary may have a lesser position than the general in the army, because the secretary is connected to the president, and I'm connected to the secretary, then I have a better connection than the general does, because I'm connected directly to the president. So if we, through the Sri Guru, are connected to Krishna, then we are actually in a better position than even the Deva does.
One more question. Guru.
Yeah.
Do we have to approach the Devis and Devatas before we could go to Bhagwan Krishna?
No, that was in Vedic times. In Vedic time, before Kali Yuga, that although it was always possible to worship Krishna, generally speaking, people would worship different devatas, and through them, those who were Vaishnavas or devotees of Vishnu, they would ascend, they would offer their worship to Krishna through different devatas. Or they would worship the Lord, but they would worship different devatas to accomplish different things. But in Kali Yuga, that's not recommended. Because, first of all, we may become confused, and Krishna is teaching us, because we don't have a long lifetime. We worship Katyayani to get, like the women worship Katyayani to get a husband, and people would worship Surya to have certain degree of health or a certain degree of power. We don't have time to do that or the ability to do that. So therefore Krishna says, just worship me alone. He says, Mayaiva hitan hitan. That actually everything that the devatas can offer is actually coming from me. So just worship me. Because there's no time. We don't have the time or the experience or the wealth or the ability to worship the devata. Most people, they think worship the devatas. I have a little picture of Lakshmi Devi. I offer some incense and a flower. I stick it under the picture, and then that's my worship. Offer some prayers. But the worship is much more complex. The actual worship of the devata.
But we need someone to carry us to Krishna. Do we?
Yes, that is the spiritual master. That is the guru.
Thank you very much.
The devatas actually never carried us to Krishna directly. They were simply in charge of different departments. So, just like nowadays, it used to be here in Trinidad that they had all kinds of different stores. You go to the shoe store and you go to this store, but now they have Price Mart. And you just go there and you get everything. So in the same way, the Lord's making it more easy for us, because in Kali Yuga we don't have sufficient intelligence or ability to worship all the different devatas. So he says, you just worship me, and then you will accomplish everything else. Krishna gives the example, just like if you have a great reservoir of water, then with that great reservoir of water you can accomplish the purpose of having many different wells. A well for washing dishes, a well for drinking, a well for washing clothes. If you have this big, expansive reservoir of water, you can do all those things in that one place. The other question? Yes.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare
Jai. 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 Haribo.
All glories of glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste
Jai